Hello everybody, this is Mr. Rob and welcome back to episode number 34 of the Washington football team franchise here on Madden NFL 22. Today we will have day 2 of the 2022 NFL Draft, so we're going to go through rounds 2 and 3 today. So if you're excited for this one, make sure you drop a like and subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. Now, day 2 will be slightly different. We're not going to go through every single pick like we did for round 1, but we're going to go through the majority of the important picks to see where some of the top players went. Here's a recap of round 1 in case you need it. Remember, we traded out of the first round. We traded our pick to the Vikings in order to pick up a first rounder next year, as well as a third round picks of this draft. So we have 3 picks to make today. The Eagles will start off on the clock, but I'll show you my draft board real quickly to show you who's at the top of it going in. And I have running back Kyren Williams sitting at the top out of Notre Dame. There's also wide receiver Ainias Smith out of Texas A&M. And there's also linebacker Ventrell Miller out of Florida. So we'll jump into the second round with the 33rd pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. The Philadelphia Eagles select Isaiah Spiller, halfback out of Texas A&M. The first halfback goes in this draft, and it's a good one. Isaiah Spiller, 76 overall hidden dev. With the 34th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Rams select Martin Emerson, cornerback out of Mississippi State. So the Rams make their first pick in this year's draft, one of the worst teams in football last year, and not a big fan of this pick. You got Ramsey. Emerson, decent player, but nothing overly special, kind of slow too. With the 35th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, New York Jets select Jordan Battle, safety out of Ohio State. Now this pick I like a lot. The Jets kind of got screwed in the first round. They weren't able to address their secondary, but they get a nice pick here at the top of the second round. Jordan Battle, he'll help with that strong safety position. With the 36th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Los Angeles Chargers select Kedon Slovis, quarterback out of USC. So the Chargers go homegrown here, picking a man who has played his college ball in LA. Very interesting pick, not going to be a starter anytime soon. Plus you have Herbert, so it looks like they just drafted a backup. With the 37th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Justin Ross, wide receiver out of Clemson. I like this pick a lot. Ross is a very good selection here. Plus he has that chemistry back to his college days with Trevor Lawrence, so he should help out day 1 and give Lawrence another target. With the 38th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Ikem Ekwonu, guard out of NC State. So still trying to get some protection for Aaron Rodgers, still trying to prolong his career, at least for this season, as he has agreed to play at least one more year in Green Bay, and you get it here with Ikem Ekwonu. With the 39th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Breece Hall, halfback out of Iowa State. Another man to give Allen out of the backfield. He's a solid running back to start, more of a power back, as he'll help you on those short scenarios. With the 40th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select DJ Dale, defensive tackle out of Alabama. Now this man is like a light version of Jordan Davis, who was selected in the first round, a very strong D tackle who is very good in the run game, and that's where he's really going to thrive in his career. With the 43rd pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Drake London, wide receiver out of USC. Now, if you remember, the Steelers signed Jameis Winston to be their new quarterback, so the Ben Roethlisberger era is over, and they try to get him another target here from USC, just like Juju Smith-Schuster and Drake London. With the 44th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Damani Richardson, safety out of Texas A&M. I think this is a very good selection here for the Falcons. In the first round, they went and took Khair Elam, so they continued to reshore up their secondary with a nice pick in Damani Richardson. With the 45th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Minnesota Vikings select Brenton Cox Jr., linebacker out of Florida. This is a man who had first round projected, however, it's not quite a first rounder. I think this is still a pretty solid value pick. Cox is going to help you in the run game. That's what Minnesota hopes he does for them. For the 47th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the San Francisco 49ers select Ainias Smith, wide receiver out of Texas A&M. This is a man I was looking at here in the second round, a speedy 5'10 receiver from Texas A&M who has great release, one of the fastest receivers in the class. It gives now Trey Lance, the new quarterback in San Francisco, a downfield threat to go with Debo. With the 48th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, Las Vegas Raiders select Desmond Ridder, quarterback out of Cincinnati. Now, in my mock, I had them picking Malik Willis in the first round. They didn't do that, but they do come back here in the second round and get a quarterback. Fortunately, Ridder, he's got a strong arm, but he has a long way to go before he'll be an impact at the NFL level. With the 49th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Jerrion Ealy, halfback out of Ole Miss. I do like this pick for the Giants. While you do have Saquon Barkley, he's had a hard time staying on the field, so at least you give him a good compliment in Jerrion Ealy, and if he impresses, maybe he can move on from Saquon in a couple years. With the 50th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Colby Harvell-Peel, strong safety out of Oklahoma. The Lions took Burks in the first round. Now they go to the secondary in Peel. Another solid selection. However, the Lions, outside of Thibodeau in the number 2 slot, haven't really had an impact player to pick. With the 51st pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Indianapolis Colts select Jahan Dotson, wide receiver out of Penn State. A very solid selection here for the Colts. A great deep threat as well for Carson Wentz as he still tries to find his footing in Indianapolis. Probably the second fastest receiver behind Anaya Smith, who Dotson plays a lot like. With the 52nd pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Tre'Vius Hodges-Tomlinson, cornerback out of TCU. He's got a very interesting name, but he's also a very, very good player. He's only 5'9", but he has some of the best man coverage you'll see in the draft, so I think this is a great pick in the second round for the Baltimore Ravens. With the 53rd pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Jalen Tolbert, wide receiver out of South Alabama. This is something I thought the Buccaneers would do at round 1, considering they lost Godwin and Brown in the offseason. But they finally get a good replacement at wide receiver. Tolbert should be asked to make an impact on day 1, and I think he'll definitely help Tom Brady at least underneath. With the 54th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select Darion Kendrick, cornerback out of Georgia. A solid selection here for the Texans. They continue to rebuild in the post-Deshaun Watson era. They get a guy who needs some work, but could be something of a slot corner in the NFL. With the 56th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Nakobe Dean, linebacker out of Georgia. So the captain of that vaunted Georgia defense, while he doesn't have hidden dev, I do think Nakobe Dean could be a solid run stopper, at least at the second level. Kind of replace that Danny Trevathan role for the Chicago Bears. So that puts us back on the clock as we still have yet to make our first selection in the draft. And I did take a look at the trades for this pick, but I think it is definitely time for us to make our first selection in the draft. And with Anaya Smith being taken, the guy at the top of my board is halfback Kyren Williams out of Notre Dame. So he is the pick with the 57th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. We take Kyren Williams, halfback out of Notre Dame. And he's got hidden dev and he's 73 overall. Now, you're probably thinking this is an odd pick considering we do have Antonio Gibson coming off of a record season, but Gibson has made it known that he wants to make a lot more money. He thinks he's worth a lot more, and he's threatened to at least hold out the preseason. So, I don't know what's going to happen with Gibson in that role, but we do get an insurance man in Williams who can also catch the football. So, if Gibson can't come to a new contract, Williams will need a big role in now Toronto. With the 59th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select David Bell, wide receiver out of Purdue. So they use the second round to draft a wide receiver to help be a new target for Willis. He'll complement with Michael Thomas, a nice underneath receiver. So Willis has got a couple of guys he can use in the check down game. With the 60th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, New England Patriots select Tywan Mullen, cornerback out of Indiana. Now, if you've been watching the channel, you know I'm a big fan of Tywan Mullen. I've seen what he can do, 5'10" corner out of Indiana. A little raw, but don't be surprised if he can be a very good slot receiver to start, especially with 77 press. That's some of the best in the draft. With the 61st pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Dallas Cowboys select Trent McDuffie, quarterback out of Washington. So back-to-back corners here taken at the end of round 2. Trent McDuffie, another good corner, goes to Dallas as he has decent man, hidden dev though, so I'll see his coverages go up. With the 63rd pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks select Charlie Kohler, tight end out of Iowa State. So the second tight end we've seen taken in the draft, and not really anything special as well as the Seahawks, who just went to the Super Bowl, are very interesting pick here with Charlie Kolar. And with the 64th pick of the 2022 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Josh Jobe, cornerback out of Alabama. So the third corner taken in 4 picks. Josh Jobe goes to KC. Their secondary, I would think, would be one of their weaker units, and they do take Josh Jobe, who's nothing special, but he at least adds some depth to the Super Bowl champion secondary. Here's our recap of round 2. You can see all the picks. We took Kyren Williams. Let me know what you guys thought of that pick. As you can see, all the ones we didn't highlight. Some of the guys going to some of the other teams. Let me know also, what was your sleeper pick of the second round? Who do you think had the best second round selection? So we're on day 2, so we're going to have the third round as well. Third round is going to go a little bit quicker. Not going to highlight as many picks. I have 2 picks, though, in the third round. And Ventrell Miller is the top guy on my board who can cover as a linebacker. And there's also Zay Flowers, a very fast wide receiver out of Boston College. That speed and those catching traits, that's hard to ignore. Also a guard, like to have some offensive line depth. Emil Ekiyor Jr. out of Alabama is somebody who I could look to in the third round for some depth there. But we're going to go in the third round, and with the 67th pick of the 2022 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select DeMarco Hillams, safety out of Alabama. Now, if you remember my mock draft, I surprisingly had Hillams in the first round, and he fell all the way to the third. And I think this is a great pick by the Panthers, 70 overall, hidden development. This is a phenomenal value pick, showing that maybe he should have gone in the first round. With the 69th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Ventrell Miller, linebacker out of Florida. So there goes one of the guys I was targeting in this round. Ventrell Miller, he's not anything special, but he's going to stay in the state of Florida. He is a pretty solid coverage linebacker, though. Kind of slow, though, so we'll have to see how he holds up against some of the speedier tight ends. With the 70th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers select Austin Stogner, tight end out of Oklahoma. So finally in the third round, another tight end goes, and it's the most impressive tight end in the draft. Don't know why the Patriots or the Seahawks didn't take him with their first and second round picks. He is the best tight end in this class. With the 72nd pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select Nolan Smith, linebacker out of Georgia. Another great value pick here. Nolan Smith is a hidden dev 70 overall linebacker, and he could one day replace Von Miller once Von Miller decides to call it quits. With the 73rd pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Adam Anderson, linebacker out of Georgia. Here's another guy who actually was projected to go in the first round, who fell to the third round, and the Steelers said, why not? They get a very good pass rusher in Adam Anderson. Might not complete 3 downs right away, but he is definitely going to help on pass rushing roles. Great pick by the Steelers. So now we go to pick 77, and we're back on the clock. We just saw Ventrell Miller get picked. So the next highest guy on my board is going to be wide receiver Zay Flowers. Now, before we get there, I did look at the trade options. Nothing really intrigued me. So we are going to pick Zay Flowers here. 4.3 speed, good catching traits. He can do all 3 catching levels. So with the 77th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, we take Zay Flowers, wide receiver out of Boston College. Hidden dev 70. Now, we have a lot of depth at the wide receiver position, but if we decide to move on from somebody, maybe Zay Flowers takes his place. I can see him also influencing on special teams if we need to give Antonio Gibson a break. With the 78th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the New York Jets select Mykael Wright, cornerback out of Oregon. So the Jets waited to day 2 to make their secondary picks, and they've hit 2 good ones. Jordan Battle and Mykael Wright. Mykael Wright has pretty solid man coverage. Anything better we've seen in the second round, honestly. So I think Wright and Battle, that's a good start in that secondary, especially on day 2. With the 88th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Reggie Roberson Jr., wide receiver out of SMU. So as Fields continues to develop, you get a nice receiver here in Roberson, who has good release, just needs to work on his route running, but he could help in that downfield passing game. So now we're on the clock with the 89th pick, and I had one more guy in the third round who I had targeted, and with the 89th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, we take guard Emilio Ekiyor Jr. out of Alabama, another hidden dev player. Yes, he's a 69 overall, and yes, we reached, but you want hidden dev linemen. We find one here. He's not going to start day 1 with Scherf, especially manning that right guard spot, but Ekiyor Jr., I expect him to be starting in year 2. Great pick, I would say. The 91st pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Zach Pickens, defensive tackle out of South Carolina. So former 5-star recruits. Pickens, another good pick here for the Saints. Good value. He is a good run stopper already, and he will definitely, I would say, improve and also get in the passing game. So the Saints get a nice lineman in the 3rd round. And with the 95th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Seattle Seahawks select Boye Mafe, defensive end out of Minnesota. So like the Saints' 4 picks prior, the Seahawks get a nice value defensive lineman in the 3rd round. I think better than their 2nd round selection, honestly. Don't know why they went tight end, but they kind of make up for it here with Mafe in the 3rd. So here's a look at the 3rd round. A couple of other players to highlight. Zion Nelson went to the Rams. He's a 66 overall, but he does have a hidden dead. So didn't highlight all the picks here in round 3. We're not going to highlight all of them as we go forward, but showed you some of the good ones. The Lions select Malik Cunningham in the 3rd round as well. Don't know if he'll replace Jared Goff, but also something to watch out for in that regard. So that'll do it for day 2, excuse me. And then next will be day 3, where we'll have a 4th, a 6th, and a 7th round selection. Here's a look at the board as we go into the final day of the draft. But before we get there, let me know what you guys thought of our day 2 picks. Let me know what you thought of Williams. Let me know what you thought of Flowers. And also let me know who you thought was the biggest sleeper in the draft. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe down below, especially if you want more franchise content. This is Mr. Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.